Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Qur'an. In this series, we're looking at the interpretation of the 67th chapter of the Qur'an, known as Surah Al Mulk, or the chapter of the dominion. In this segment of the series, we'll be looking at the 17th verse, which is as follows.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Am amintum man fis samai an yursila alaykum hasiba fasata'lamuna kayfa nadhir.
Or do you feel secure that He who is over the heaven will not send a violent whirlwind against you? Soon you will know the result of my warning. The disbelievers are further advised to reflect on other natural phenomena. The cool breezes which we experience in the evenings or in the mornings, which is so refreshing, so pleasant, these can quickly evolve into violent hurricanes or tornadoes or typhoons. As a result of that, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, used to tell us, the wind is from the mercy of Allah. It brings mercy and it brings punishment. So when you feel it, do not curse it. Instead, ask Allah for the good in it and ask Allah's protection from the evil in it. He used to say this particular prayer, Allahumma inni as'aluka khayraha wa khayra ma fiha wa khayra ma ursilat bi wa a'udhu bika min sharriha wa sharri ma fiha wa sharri ma ursilat bi. That is, O Allah, I ask you for its good and the good in it and the good for which it was sent, and I seek refuge in your protection from its evil, the evil in it and the evil for which it was sent. So Allah here threatens the disbelievers with dire consequences for not recognizing Him in their lives and living in accordance with His laws. The natural disasters around them are signs if they would but reflect. But at the same time, as we said, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, advised us, even in the worst of hurricanes, when times seem very disastrous, we should not curse the hurricane or curse the wind or the tornado. We should never do that, because it is from Allah. Allah sent it, and there is good in it, even if we cannot see it. It may bring punishment for those who have disbelieved, but for those who believe, they have to ask Allah for protection from the evil within it and not to curse it. In the 18th verse, Allah goes on to question the disbelievers.
وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ.
Indeed, those before them denied the truth. How severe was my disapproval. Allah suggests to them that they should reflect on those who came before, the civilizations which preceded us. Some of them are mentioned in the Qur'an, like that of Prophet Lot, whose people rejected the teachings and persisted in corruption, and they were completely destroyed. Actually, when we look back at most pagan civilizations of the past, we can see signs that they were devastated by natural phenomena at different points in their histories. Actually, these stories about these civilizations, we can find them written in folklore, as well as in written histories of contemporaries. Modern archaeological research has uncovered much evidence confirming such events amongst the Mayans of Central America, the Romans, the Greeks in Europe, the African civilizations, the Persians, the Indians, and the Chinese. Unfortunately, the study of these civilizations is one which seeks just to know about the civilization. You know, how they organized themselves, what type of clothing they wore, you know, what type of life they lived, what achievements they made. But they're not studying them as a whole to see a pattern of civilizations being involved in idolatry and paganism, reaching a peak and being destroyed. I mean, these are signs that are there. However, only those who believe would really reflect on such signs. So Allah calls on the disbelievers as well as the believers to reflect on the consequence for those who reject Allah's signs. In the 19th verse, Allah goes on to invite believers and the disbelievers to look at other phenomena around them. He says,
أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنُ إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ.
Do they not see the birds above them, spreading out their wings and folding them in? None keeps them up except the Most Gracious. Indeed, He sees everything. Allah invites the disbelievers to look at the birds in their graceful motion in the skies above us. What is it that keeps them up there? There's no doubt that the bird is heavier than air. If you pick up a ball and you throw it in the air, it falls back down. But the bird stays up. There's a sign in it for those who would reflect how it is. How can it be? In fact, human beings of the past, in looking at the design of the bird, seeing it fly, desiring to want to soar in the heavens in the same way that the bird did, eventually designed machines which followed the overall design of the bird and which eventually took them into the air. And when you look at the most modern of these jets in our times, in the early days they look like boxes, you know, with propellers on them, and later on they shifted to jets which look like tubes, you know, pipe tubes. But later on, as they became faster and they became more efficient, etc., we find the design changing to something which looked very much like a bird. In the early days, it was only the wing. The cross-section of the wing of those early planes is very much like the cross-section of the wing of the bird, you know, designed in such a way to keep it airborne. But the later planes, if we look at commercial jets like the Concorde and military airplanes like the F-16, you know, even the Boeing 747, you can see their shape is very much now bird-like. You know, the whole cockpit, the whole overall shape of the plane is looking more and more like a bird. And humans have learned all of this from observing the birds. Who created the laws which keep the bird in the air, or which now keep tons and tons of metal in the air? If one were to tell people of the past, 100 years, 200 years ago, that man would be able to fly tons of metal in the space, they would laugh at this being so ludicrous. However, we're doing it now with laws which were already there. We discovered them, but we didn't create them. And it should be really a humbling thought for humans. As Allah said in Surah Al-Isra, the 17th chapter, verse 85, وَمَا أُتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. The knowledge you were given is but very little. And human beings, as they have developed this knowledge further, instead of humility, you find them obsessed with now reaching out into space, landing on the moon, landing on Mars, looking for extraterrestrial life, spending millions and millions of dollars in the SETI program, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, where they're training electronic telescopes into the heavens, different stars around the galaxies, etc., trying to find communication from intelligence, meaning intelligent life, aliens from other planets, from other stars, searching, spending millions. When human beings are in need of this money, they're spending millions searching for human life out there, or intelligent life out there. Why? And human beings, as they have developed this knowledge further, instead of humility, you find them obsessed with now reaching out into space, landing on the moon, landing on Mars, looking for extraterrestrial life, spending millions and millions of dollars in the SETI program, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, where they're training electronic telescopes into the heavens, different stars around the galaxies, etc., trying to find communication from intelligence, meaning intelligent life, aliens from other planets, from other stars, searching, spending millions. When human beings are in need of this money, they're spending millions searching for human life out there, or intelligent life out there. Why? Because they've denied God's existence. And they've concluded that we are here by accident. They've removed the whole issue of God as to how we got here. So therefore, if we have appeared by accident here, and there are countless stars similar to ours in countless galaxies, then surely around these stars there must be planets similar to Earth, where life has evolved as it has on Earth. Because if it's accidents, accidents will repeat themselves. They'll not just happen once and in a billion opportunities not happen again. No, they'll happen again. So this is their logic. Therefore, they're looking avidly out there in space, sending out probes and listening away, trying to find intelligent life out there. And this is really very pitiful on the part of human beings, because it is an expression of their arrogance on one hand, instead of listening to the message which is brought by the prophets, humbling themselves before God as they see the galaxy and the universe above them so complex yet so cohesive, and everything governed by laws, regulated. They see all of that, and among them there are those who still continue to deny God's existence. So it is very, very pitiful to see them in this state, but at the same time arrogant on one side but pitiful on the other, when we see, because of the fact that they have lost the meaning to life. Once one denies God's existence, then life becomes meaningless. We're just here to eat, drink, and be merry, as they say, for tomorrow you may die. That's all life is. And really, what is the difference between us and the animals then? And some of them say, really, there's no difference. You hear Stephen Jay Gould, for example, saying, there's no difference between human speaking and the singing of the humpback whale, and the chirping of the dolphins, or this type of comparing all of this to be the same. And it's very ludicrous. And as such, you find those who have made these kind of expressions, they become obsessed with trying to find extraterrestrial life, to bring meaning back into their life. Yes, it's accident, but we are a part of a huge accident. This whole universe, there are others in the same position as us. Perhaps they're more advanced, so they will come and enlighten us to the things that we don't know about now. However, this is a fantasy which will not come to any conclusion, because life here on earth is not an accident. It is deliberately created by God. And before closing this verse, we may reflect on a statement which Umar ibn al-Khattab stated, that the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, said. He said, if you trusted in Allah the way He should be trusted, He would provide for you the way He provides for the birds. They leave their nests in the morning with empty stomachs and return at dusk full. For us to reflect. Those birds that we see flying so gracefully in the air, held up only by the power of God. At the same time, when they leave their homes, their nests, they leave their homes with empty stomachs, not knowing where there's going to be food or anything, but they come back with their stomachs full. There is trust. They just naturally go out and do this. And if we were to trust the way that the birds trust Allah, then we would find provision in our lives the way that they find it. In the 20th verse, Allah goes on to question the disbelievers as to what help they think they can find. He says,
أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُندٌ لَكُمْ يَنصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ.
who besides the most gracious can be a supporting army for you? Surely the disbelievers are in nothing but delusion. In human life, we judge the power and authority of a nation, of a country, by its army. The question is, when one falls into the trap of disbelief, the disbelief which is promoted by evil forces within our world, from amongst human beings as well as from the evil of the jinn, satanic forces, etc. When one falls into the punishment of Allah, which is the consequence of falling into the trap of disbelief and rejection of God, who is going to help us? Who is going to help them? There will be no help. No one can prevent Allah's punishment from coming. Allah speaks about that, saying, on the day of resurrection, He will disgrace them and say, where are your partners whom you used to argue about? This is in the 20th chapter, verse 62. And He goes on to say, they have taken besides Allah gods hoping for their help, but they cannot help them. Instead, they will be brought forward as an army against those who worship them. So instead of finding support, those who were worshipped besides Allah will be turned against them on the Day of Judgment to increase their own state of abandonment, feelings of despair, etc., as the punishment overwhelms them. And Allah goes on to say in the 14th chapter, verse 22, when the matter is decided, Satan will say, indeed, Allah's promise was truthful. I promised you also, but I betrayed you. I had no authority over you. I only invited you and you responded. So do not blame me, but blame yourselves. I cannot help you, nor can you help me. Furthermore, I deny your previous association of me as a partner with Allah. Surely the corrupt will have a painful punishment. This is the end result. All those who supported the disbelievers in corruption in this life will reject them on the Day of Judgment. They will ask Allah to curse them, as those who depended on them will seek to ask Allah to curse them. But all will face a terrible punishment. And throughout history, you can find that Allah has protected societies from each other by turning armies against each other. Napoleon's armies were eventually defeated by those of Britain. Hitler's forces were eventually beaten by the Allies. And Allah says in the 2nd chapter, verse 251, if Allah did not check one set of people with another, the earth would have been filled with corruption. But Allah has favored the worlds with His grace. Human beings tend to see their own victories as being a product of their own efforts. However, you can find Allah's hand within all of the most critical battles of history. For example, during World War II, Hitler's army was defeated by the Russian winter, more so than by the Russian army itself. Had Hitler succeeded in conquering Russia and bringing the Russian forces and their resources under his command, the world would probably have faced certain defeat. But Hitler's loss protected the world from a greater tragedy. And it was, as I said, due to the Russian winter, not really due to the Russian army. They fought, but it was the winter that defeated them. And similarly, in the life of the last prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, it was Allah who helped the prophet and his companions when they were in Medina in what was known as the Battle of the Khandaq, or the Battle of the Trench, when the pagan armies had gathered to defeat them. But then Allah sent a wind and a hurricane to destroy their tents, knock over their fires, and chase them out of Medina. It was Allah who acted on their behalf. And so it is that Allah has acted on behalf of human beings throughout history, causing the defeat of certain military powers which would seem on the verge of taking over everything. But Allah checks them with another people or with natural disasters, etc., and protects humankind so that it can continue till today. And it is for us to reflect. There is none who can help us in the hellfire. No armies that we had in this life will be of benefit for us in the next life. Instead, all those who we depended on besides Allah will be part and parcel of an army sent against us, to testify against us, to ask Allah to curse us. So, dear viewers, it is for us to reflect on our situation in this life and turn to God as He should be turned to. We'd like to close this segment of the program and hope that you will continue to follow our program Understanding the Qur'an, and we'll see you in the next episode. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.